Hi there, I'm Colin Morgan, the executive producer of Built to Sell Radio. And if you've been enjoying this podcast, you're going to absolutely love our new newsletter, Built to Sell News. We share actionable tips and insights to help you get inside the mind of an acquirer to punch above your weight when it comes time to exit. To subscribe, head over to builttosell.com/subscribe.
Carrie Kelsch, welcome to Built to Sell Radio.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. I've listened to your pods before. I'm just impressed.
Oh, well, that's great. I'm thrilled. How did you get into the garage door business? This is an interesting journey. What was the impetus to getting into garage doors?
Yeah. So like every little girl just dreams of like, oh, I just can't wait to grow up and be in the garage door space. So now I was actually a mortgage broker and I was dating a guy that was working for a local garage door company. And he hated the culture. He hated the company. And he kept begging me to open up a business. And I was a single mom, 3 kids, just dating this guy. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to be that serious. So no. And I told him no for quite a bit, but he's a really good salesman. And eventually he came to me and he's like, well, if you open a company, I'll manage it. And your kids will be able to work here when they get old enough. And my oldest was 13. And I was like, oh, I do want that. So I really opened it for my kids. So they had a place to go get some work ethic and just kind of figure out their life while they're getting their feet wet and in the adult side of transitioning. And
so you got started. So what was the business model? Like I'm familiar. We've had a garage door issue in a property we own, and we've had to get a company in, and they lubricated the machine. I think they actually replaced a few parts. And like, is that the kind of company that like automatic garage door openers and homes?
Exactly.
Okay.
You know what the model was? You do residential. So we just, our target market was residential. We don't want this new construction, but we love to do retrofit. So that was really what our model was, is just to repair all of those doors that are breaking after, these companies come in and just slap them all in.
And so what was the business model? Was it, was it recurring revenue, or was it just break fix? How did you guys make money?
So the business model was, we would post an ad in the phone book. And yes, that 20 years ago, it was a phone book. That's why I've got A+ garage doors, is you have to be A, you got to be the top. And so you just put your name in the phone book and your phone start ringing because those customers, their doors are breaking. So the business model was just to be wherever the customers are going to be finding you or looking for you once their door breaks.
And how did that evolve over time as the yellow pages became less important and the internet obviously kind of became much more important? How did your strategy for finding customers evolve?
Oh, I mean, you're constantly evolving. Marketing is like this beast that you've got to always try to tame. You're trying to get on top of it in every way that you can. As the phone books fell off, and it was interesting because I could just tell you it was 2007. And I got a cold call from someone. And it's like, hey, this is Travis with Ouzo Media. And I was like, okay. So I start talking to him. He's like, you need to be on the internet. I'm like, the internet? What is that? I have a phone book. I don't need the internet, whatever that is. And so he had to explain to me how you use the internet. And I'm like, what? That's not even a thing. He's like, right now it's not a thing, but you're going to thank me. So he really, and I do all the time. Me and Travis are still good friends. And I thank him all the time for getting me involved in getting me online before anybody else was online. He built a great online presence for us.
Got it. And how did you finance this business? What was the startup capital that you had, and how I don't know much about garage doors, so you probably understand my ignorance in the question, but like, how much money did you need to get this thing off the ground?
So I was a mortgage broker, and I was used to living on very little income. So like $1,500 a month, I felt like I was killing it. I was a mom providing for my 3 kids. And when I started I got really, I got some ins with the mortgage brokering, and I did really well there. And so I started making some really good income, and I used that money, and I put like $75,000 into the company to open it day one. I needed a truck. I needed phone books. You need the business model or business attributes set up. So I dropped 75,000 and over time, added to that. But that is how I did it, just using the money from what I made being a mortgage broker.
And so I'm so fascinated by this because, this home service category, whether it's garage doors or windows or roofing, it's exploding right now in terms of its emphasis. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal last month about it being the new millionaire class or, home service businesses. But I'm curious, a lot of them, the proprietors of these businesses, they come up through apprenticeships. They work in a roofing company. They get their chops working for somebody, and they say, "Yeah, I can do it better." But in your case, that's not. You weren't fixing garage doors for someone else. You were mortgage brokering. So, how did you learn the technical skills needed to start owning a business in this category?
Well, I didn't, and I still don't. So the technical, I really relied on the boyfriend that I eventually married. And he ran the day-to-day operations of it. And then I ran all the back end, and we worked together, but he was definitely out running service calls, and I was working on the business, getting the marketing going and, getting payroll done.
How did you guys, okay, and you can tell me that it's none of my business, but I'm curious. So boyfriend, not husband, right? How did that formalize? Because you're both working in the business, but you're not married. And then at some point you become married and you still own the business. How did you handle all of those delicate conversations about kind of who owns what and who's bringing what to the table? Was that tricky?
It was very tricky, for sure. There was a lot of the divorce thrown around. I felt like I was forced, held at gunpoint to marry him, which I don't think he intended to do that. It was just listen, either you marry me or I'm leaving. And I was, I'm just like, oh crap. And I don't blame him. I know a lot of relationships are it's like, shit or get off the pot. And I think that's kind of how he felt. Like, he's like, I'm helping build this. And so he wanted to, I felt like he wanted to lock it in. He said he just wanted to lock in me. I'm still with him today. So he was probably right.
Well, it worked out some way, shape, or form.
But anyway, it definitely got ugly at times. And I mean, even after we were married, I still owned it. And he's like, well, give me 50% of the company. And there's some reasons I couldn't do that. And so it did get ugly, and it's still today is a sore spot.
Interesting. And when you say you couldn't do that, is that for legal reasons, tax reasons, or more philosophical?
No, more personal. He was, I felt like to keep control of the situation. Just because I didn't know if he was a flight risk or not. And I wasn't willing to jeopardize what I put into it. Because then it's just, that's my investment. I'm not willing to risk it. And then it got to the point where it's like, those are my employees. I'm not willing to risk their job.
Did you ever feel vulnerable not understanding the technical aspects of what you did?
I did. I was definitely embarrassed about it. I felt like, oh, you know what? Nobody wants to talk to me. I had to make somebody else the face of the company. And I would show up at these meetings, and I would have one of my employees there, and it was like a vendor meeting. And they'd be like, why'd you bring the broad? And he's like, oh, she's the boss. Like, she owns the company. So it was definitely, uncomfortable for sure. And I didn't step into it near as much as I should have. I just kind of held back and made everybody else seem like they're the face and just did everything kind of behind the scenes.
Am I correct to assume that in retrospect, if you had it to do all over again, you would have gone and to get your certifications so that you had the technical chops to?
Definitely not.
No. Okay.
No. Yeah. I feel like right now, hindsight's 20/20, right? Seeing now that it's like, well, if I would have known how to do it and go out there and do the work, that would have hindered me from actually growing the business, because I was like, how can I contribute? How can I contribute? I know I can grow this, and I can add more marketing, and I can get another employee, and, and so I'm just growing it and trying to make everything bigger and better. And so it was really because I didn't have the technical skills that I ended up going that route to build it.
Isn't that fascinating? It's always like, the Michael Gerber work on, not in kind of notion. you didn't have the luxury of working in, like you couldn't have gotten your hands dirty. So you could have, but it would have probably broken something. So like the idea of actually, that was almost a nice dividing line for you because you weren't tempted to do that.
Yep.
It's fascinating. I think about all of these businesses, again, roofing, installing windows and doors. And I think the temptation is, well, I've got to become an installer first, then I'll learn it and then I'll be able to own a business. You're sort of saying the opposite, that you can hire the talent and in many ways, having that dividing line is good.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that was, in my case, that was it.
At what point did you start to realize, in your own admission in the early days, it was a little bit hand to mouth, you invested $75,000. Was there a point where you realized that, oh, hold on a second, I'm building an asset that could be worth something at some point? Like, at what point did you kind of come to that conclusion?
Very, very late in the game. So late in the game. In 2020 or 2013, again, this friend of mine that owned Ouzel Media, Travis Ashby, convinced me to go to a Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. And because I didn't know what I was doing, I was like, yeah, I should probably go. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm faking it. So I went to this, and that is when I opened my eyes and went, oh my gosh, like nobody's driving this ship. Like nobody's leading this. Like we're just doing our day-to-day things. And there's no true leader that's just standing up. And that's kind of when I more established that, you know what, I am going to lead this. I am going to have an aim. I started definitely that's when I started showing that it's like, yes, I'm a woman. I'm in a male industry and I'm running this company. So that's when I noticed that I had a company. As for when I noticed the value of it and that I had something that was valuable, we're talking 2022.
Okay. So at 2013, how big are you at that point? Like in terms of revenue, number of employees, where were you at?
So we're about 1.3 million and about 21 employees, 8 trucks.
Okay. Got it. So so 21 employees, 1.3 million, 2013. Okay. So that's where you're like, okay, no, this company actually needs a leader.
Yep.
We need a vision. We need to. And were you still self-financing out of cash flow, the whole growth, or were you bringing on outside investors at this point?
So John, 100% of the company has been debt-free the whole time. Every truck, every building, everything we've done.
Incredible. So just using cash flow from the company to continue to reinvest.
Yep.
And are you drawing a decent salary at this point? Are you still... You're shaking your head.
It's relative. No, I wasn't, but I didn't take a lot to live on. So, but I wasn't drawing a huge salary. We drew enough salary by then we're married and my husband's taking a small salary. I'm taking a small salary and we're just enough to live on. And then everything else is rolled back into the company.
And was there a temptation with 20 employees and $1.3 million in revenue? Some people get to that stage and they say, well, look, this is great. I can run the truck through the business. I can take a vacation and say that's a conference. And, we're both on this is good for me. I don't need to get any bigger. I got all my wants addressed. Mm-hmm. Did you ever have that conversation in your mind or with your spouse to say, well, maybe we just kind of stop here?
Yeah, no, but we're both workaholics and it's never enough. I remember writing down on a piece of paper and I wrote $5 million and I put it in a drawer. And he's like, what is that? And I'm like, that's how much I'm going to make. He's like, you're crazy. There is not enough business in garage doors to do $5,000 or $5 million. Sorry, $5 million. And he's like, there's not enough business in Utah to do $5 million. And I'm like, well, that's what I want. That's what I'm going for. So, but we're both workaholics. So there's not that in a workaholic's mind. You're not like, oh, I'll just take it easy and relax.
What was it about 5 million that was important to you?
I think it's just, it's just a number. It's just something that I've always done that. I always kind of write down how much money I want every month or how much I want every year, or just what I'm creating. And so 5 million was just the next step, You're at 1 and you were hoping to get to 5. Yeah.
And was there anything on your bucket list that you're like, when we get to 5, I'm going to buy X, do Y?
I told him, when we get to 5 million, I'm going to sell. And so he's like, okay, yeah, I could do that. So, and then once we got to 5 million, I was like, when we get to 8 million, I'm going to sell. And then we hit that very fast. And I was like, okay. When we hit 30 million, I'm going to sell. And we just kept going.
And did you hit that?
We hit 30 million and I did not sell.
Okay. So talk about moving the yard markers along the way. Well, okay. So you're saying at 5, you're like, okay, well, now I'm going to sell.
Yeah.
Okay. You get there and what changed? Why didn't you want to sell at 5?
Well, when we're revenuing 5 million, it's like, to me, I still didn't know my company was valued at anything. So I was like, I didn't realize I had an asset to sell. And so my option, like my exit strategy, was to let my kids take it. And they were still young. And so I was like, well, that's not happening. And so 5 million, it's like, oh, we're just not even ready. And by the time we hit like 8 million and, 10, 12, I don't think it was until we hit like, I would say 12 million that I was now like, okay, let's come up with a strategy. I can't turn this over to my kids. And so I was just going to kind of give it to my long-term employees, because I was like, I didn't know I had an asset. I honestly.
At 12 million in revenue?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But the thing is
Wow.
like to me, yeah, I knew I had a functioning, moving, company, but I didn't realize that you could sell. I didn't realize that, I was like, who's going to buy it? Another person that wants to come in and run it? My mind just wasn't even open. My head was just down work and I had no idea what was out there.
How much EBITDA are you earning at 12 million top line?
Oh my gosh, goodness. We were probably around 30%.
Okay. So you're clearing 3, and are you putting that in your jeans, or do you have to reinvest it all in gear?
No, at this time we were reinvesting a lot. During that time was right when we decided to build a house. And so we started investing all of it into that.
Got it. Okay. So you're starting to draw out some pretty significant dividends at this point,
Yeah.
in addition to growing the revenue.
Mhm.
Okay. And how are you growing? Your spouse says we're at 1. There's no way you're going to get to 5. Now we're at 12. So you're 12 times bigger than you were. Okay. So is the product line expanded greatly? Are you still doing residential fixing people's garage doors?
Yeah, product line's pretty much the same. I mean, now when I say that, know that when I started, I felt like we had 4 options. Like when we're selling a door, we obviously could repair any door. But when selling a door, you have 4 options, like white, brown, long panel, short panel. That's like it. And so the product line definitely expanded, because as the door companies realized, it's like, oh, we want a beautiful door. We want, one with windows, one without. And they just started really making more options for everyone. So that product line expanded. But garage doors themselves, I mean, they're the same. The openers, they improve over time. And I mean, you got to give a shout out to LiftMaster. They've just gone above and beyond with the options that they're doing.
Is LiftMaster your primary supplier?
Yeah, they are. They just have like the best operator in what I would consider in the industry.
How much of your supply is coming from Lift operator on a percentage basis? A LiftMaster?
Not a lot. Not a lot. I mean, you're probably like 20% of our sales. Okay.
So there are other vendors that you can use, other equipment.
Yeah, there are other vendors, but over the sales of the whole entire company. Yeah, very little is done on operators themselves, but I would say 90% of operators that we use, maybe even 95, is just LiftMaster.
Did you ever worry LiftMaster would build out their own installation crew?
Yeah. Yeah. But we were so focused on repairs. It's like LiftMaster's not going to come, and they'd have to send somebody to every single city to service all it. And so it was like, yeah, that sounds like a pretty big, venture for somebody that's making the product.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have anything in your agreements with LiftMaster to prohibit them from doing that?
No.
You're just buying from them.
Yeah,
basically.
we're just buying from them.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. So you're at 12 million, putting 30% at the bottom line, and you're still not really feeling like you've got an asset you can sell.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know who would buy it.
Got it.
My mind was not expanded to see like who would buy something like this.
What changed?
Tommy Mello changed. He changed my mind. He reached out to me and started talking to me about selling. So to A1. And I was like, wait, I guess I do have something somebody would buy.
You mentioned the name Tommy Mello. Is that a name that we should know, or what? I'm not familiar.
A lot of people in the industry, in the service industry. Yeah, he's definitely a titan in the industry.
Okay, so he reached out and said, "Hey, you've got something that we want to buy." Is that?
Yeah, well, he reached out to me and said he's interested, but I was going through a really hard time in my life, and so I just told him not now. I can't do it.
Got it. Okay. And so when is this in the time horizon? This is after 2013. What year is this?
2022.
2022. And where are you at revenue wise at this point? Maybe ballpark?
So 2022, we're around 26 million.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Similar margins?
Similar.
Profitable?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this guy, Tommy, says, hey,
I'd like to talk to you.
Yeah. And then what?
Well, during that time, I'm just going to lay it out for you. So during that time, I was actually dealing with my daughter, who she was 23 years old. She is diagnosed with brain cancer. So she is one of those, this is my best friend, this is my daughter, diagnosed with brain cancer, only given a few months to live. And so we're really knee deep in that. And 2022 she's already lived for like 2 years. Well, she's almost lived for 3 years when he reached out to me. And I was like, I can't even like think about this. And he was super respectful, super kind, and just said, you know what, my heart goes out to you and let me know if there's anything I could do. And he just kind of left it there. And then every once in a while, I think he would check in either with a card, or flowers or something. And then once it was over with, and this was at the end of August 2022, she passed away. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And so after that, it still took me a couple of months, but by November, I went to visit him, and then saw he definitely opened my eyes to possibilities.
I'm so sorry to hear about your daughter. That is obviously incredibly tragic. How did that dealing with that level of sadness impact the underlying business itself? Were you able to keep the business somewhat insulated from what you were going through personally, or was it affecting the results you were having in the company?
So it really opened my eyes to how amazing my team is and how supportive my team is. So we were in and out of hospitals at first in 2019 when she was diagnosed. And they were just like, take your time, do what you need to. And they would just fill me in. And so I was still able to make decisions and kind of help out. But as it kind of escalated, they were able to take over more and more. And I just leaned on them. So by time 2022 hit in January 2022, I wasn't showing up, calling in. And I was like, don't call me. Don't ask any questions. If you can't figure it out yourself, like, I'm sorry. We'll just have to put a pin in it. And so they just handled everything on their own. And they did so phenomenal. Like my executive team, I've got Parker Kelsch, who is my COO now, Mitch Kelsch, he was my VP of sales. And then I had Ryan Roll, who is my general manager. Those three are just so near and dear to my heart because of what they've done to help out. And then I also have Craig Kelsch, who opened up a branch in St. George, which is like 3.5 hours away.
I'm noticing the surname. Are these your kids? Or?
They're not my kids. They're family.
Okay.
But it just happened this way. So Parker started for me when he was 16. And so he just worked his way up and just became that leader that I was looking for. And so he has really helped me run the company.
Wow.
And then Mitch came on about 7 years ago. And Craig also was a little bit before that. So he's maybe 9 years ago. Craig is my brother. And Mitch is my cousin.
And did they come on as equity holders or employees?
No,
or
just employees.
Okay.
Just employees that have, worked hard, and they have a great work ethic and worked their way up.
Amazing. Tommy reached back out, and at the end of 22, you had lost your daughter at this point, and at that point, you realized you had an ongoing business because you weren't in it at that point. I guess I'm curious to know what Tommy offered that intrigued you, because again, in your own admission, back in 2013, you still had a really successful company, 12 million in revenue, 3 million of EBITDA or more.
Yeah.
What was Tommy's pitch that was so different and made you stand up and take notice?
So by 2022, our EBITDA is like 7.5, or, right around there, 7 million to 7.5. And I've stepped back into the company again. And I'm going to get to your question, but I'm just going to tell you, like, when I stepped back into the company, my executive team could see that I was struggling, and they came to me, they sat down, they're like, Carrie, what do you need? I mean, clearly I'm depressed. I've just lost my best friend, my daughter, and struggling. They're like, what can we do? What do you want to do? Like, they're like, do you want to get out? Do you want to go like live in Europe? Whatever you want to do, like, we'll support you. What brings you joy? And I said, you know what? Growing the company brings me joy. Like, it does. It just, I'm like, I want to grow it. And so they're like, we're 100% behind you. Let's do this. And so this was like October. So she passed away in August. So it was very soon after that I just started jumping back in, and it's like, let's grow this. Let's make plans. And so when we went to see Tommy, he was telling us how, like, industries change. And he's absolutely right. Industries change. And in our industry, as these companies group up, the little guys are just going to get left behind. They're not going to have the buying power. They're not going to have the marketing power, and they're just going to get left behind. And I saw that. And he also was like, look, we can take the executive team and the leaders you have, and we can grow on that. So he just helped me see that if I don't do something, I'm going to get left behind. And I did see that by just, looking at it from his point of view.
It's kind of the old musical chairs pitch, right? Like, the music's going, everybody's fine. When it stops, everybody's got to have a chair. And so if one person's left out, got it. And so that was his pitch. Some people might receive that and feel a little threatened. Did you feel threatened at all by that pitch?
You know what? I really didn't. I mean, I knew I had choices, and honestly, like, it looked like, I'm like, I would love to join something bigger than me. Like, take my little thing that I have and make it so much bigger.
So then what?
Well, I just kept looking at it, and his just when you start doing the diligence and you start digging in, and I realized that would have been a great strategy for me, and I could have exited and, sailed off into the sunset with my millions. And what about my team? These guys are still so near and dear to me. And that I just named 3 or 4 of them. There's so many levels of these guys. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I just didn't see how they could continue to grow and how they could get their wealth, and they'd be taken care of for a lifetime and have, generational wealth with this plan. And that's really what I was looking for. Because by now, all my needs are met. Like, I don't need money anymore. And so now it's like, now what fulfills you? Now what, what's going to bring you joy? What's going to, push you to the next level? What's your purpose? And my purpose wasn't just to make some more money. It was really now the people that I love so much, and all these employees that have just stayed by me and been there. I want them to succeed. I want them to thrive. So that was my new passion.
Okay. And what was Tommy's offer? Did he make you a tangible offer? Like, did you get a letter of intent from him, or what did he offer?
We didn't ever get to the letter of intent because we just couldn't agree on certain things. And I'm very particular and I'm not going to sign something I can't 100% stand behind. And there was some things I'm like, well, I can't stand behind that, so I'm not going to sign it. So we were going back and forth, and we already started with, even before we had an LOI, he started just doing the diligence, and he came up with, he gave me a number. They threw a number out there. And then once they started doing the diligence, because I told him, I was like, oh yeah, I make around, I said 7 million. I'm like, I have 7 million in EBITDA. So they started doing the diligence. They came back to me before we even signed an LOI and said, well, you know what? Your bookkeepers are wrong. Your CPA is wrong. Financial controller, he's wrong. So you really only make 3.5. And I was like, that is not the case, because I know I spent more than that. Because remember, I've just been spending a ton of money on my daughter for all of we're going to Colombia trying to get treatment. We're going to Houston. We're paying for all of this out of pocket expenses. I'm like, I know how much I spent on her. I know for a fact I've made more than that. And so right there, that kind of rubbed me wrong. And it wasn't him. Obviously, it's the team. I very much respect him. So I know it was just the situation of what happened. And he didn't, they didn't really dig in as much as what I would have. And he always said, he's like, go get your own QOV. But once that came back so off, I'm like, we're not even on the same page here. So I just kind of pushed that aside and didn't see it as a possibility anymore.
Got it. Did you say get your own Q of E, quality of earnings?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Okay. I just want to make sure because my listeners may be hearing that term for the first time, quality of earnings, validating effectively your own accounting and so forth. Got it. Okay. And roughly, if you're able to share, what multiple of EBITDA was on the table at that point?
What was on the table started around 10.
So, hey, we think it's worth 70. If you're doing 7 times 10, but we've done the math and now we think you're only doing 3.5. So it's more like, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so makes sense. And by the way, it's not the first time we've heard that there's a bit of a bait and switch, or one offer thrown out at the beginning and then it gets ground down towards the end. So that's not a huge surprise. But in any event, you went a different way at that point. You chose to continue. And did you hire an M&A professional? Did you just keep working? Like, what was your next step?
Well, my goal wasn't to get the most money out of the situation. My goal was to find a partner that actually helped and set up something for my team so that they could win. And so I didn't go after getting an M&A partner, and I didn't go hire somebody. I had definitely a lot of other companies approaching me, and I interviewed and spoke with them, visited a lot of them. And there was one I finally settled on, and he was kind of a startup. He's done it before in another space, like the HVAC space, but he's never done it in the garage door space. And so he's kind of starting his own thing. So coming from a big firm, and then he's just kind of starting up his own thing. And I really appreciated like his honesty and his integrity and who he was. And so I was sold on that more so than anything else.
This is an individual who's starting a private equity group to roll up garage door.
Correct.
Installation company. Got it.
Yes.
Because the private equity, of course, has gone nuts over these home services businesses. They're buying them up left, right, and center. So this individual worked in an HVAC private equity roll up, and he left there and he said, I'm going to do garage doors. And did he raise a bunch of money then to
he had a partner. He had a partner. And
a financial partner.
Yeah, a financial partner. And they were, so I met them, and we just started talking about it. And the idea was, we had big plans, like, we'll do our own, because I'm like, well, I don't want to join Tommy's or A1 for reasons of like, I was really focused on what can my employees get out of this? How can they win? And I already knew by like looking into it enough that sometimes when somebody's already valued so high and we come in, all of a sudden our value jumps up and they get all the in between. And then it's like, well, what's left for the little guy? And so I was like, well, can't we do it like who's near to dear to me is the blue collar worker. That's near and dear to me. Not these white collar workers. I love them, but no, that's not it. It's the blue collar. It's the ones I see every day. The guys that are out there busting their backs, And that's who's dear to me. And so I was like, can't we just start our own group and just get the garage door companies of all these guys that are just busting their backs and so they can make the money instead of having the PE firms make the money. And so that was really my intent. And when talking to this guy, he's like, yeah, I can help you build that. I can help you build it, and we can get some companies to join us, and we'll get very attractive to PE. So when you do go sell, you can sell for a much higher multiple, and we can set up the company so that you can have shares for whoever you want to have shares. And so it was really a strategic play for me to be able to do this so that I could take care of the ones that I cared about.
Okay. So you lost me a little bit there, but I'm sure you'll catch me up as we go. So you have this theoretical offer from Tommy, which is a massive, life-changing amount of money. Even though you're doing financially very well at this stage, it's still a huge amount of money. And then that kind of fizzles. So so help me understand. So what is the kind of mechanics that you're structuring so that your employees would benefit? Help me understand that.
Well, there's the top ones that like, there's the ones that I wanted to take care of. And it wasn't, when people usually go to do this, it's normal for them to have a couple, like 3 or 4. Well, I had like 15, So I had so many more that I wanted to take care of. And all the other companies that I talked to as I'm doing my due diligence on who to join, they were like, ooh, I'm not sure how we're going to do it with that many people. And, and it was always getting sticky and there was no solid path to it. But what I could do is I could give, some phantom shares to individuals and be able to roll. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of firms or PE firms that are like, oh, I could have done that. Oh, I could have done that. But my eyes weren't open to it. And this was the first person that came to me and said, oh, we can absolutely do that. And this is how we'll structure it. And this is what we can do. And I just saw it as a great start for us. Like, it's a great way to now position the company so that we can all win together.
So how did the economics work? So how did you value the business? Again, 7 million in EBITDA. Did you use a multiple of EBITDA? How did you kind of arrive at what the value of the business was?
Yeah. So now looking back, I definitely could have gotten more for the company, but I'm also happy with what I've done. Just talking to everybody, like multiple companies. It's like, well, and I knew I was doing 7 million. Well, I thought I was doing 7 million. Right. And so just talking to these other companies, they're like, oh, 7 million, you're probably around a 10, 11x. And everyone's like, oh, you're probably around a 10, 11x. So that was I kind of knew going into it that I wasn't going to accept anything less than a 10x.
Got it. So $70 million is a lot of money. Last time I checked. So this is basically the value they put on the business. Now, most private equity groups, they don't buy 100%. They buy 50, 60, 70%. Is that the way it was?
It was structured much different because I wasn't willing to, again, same thing with when we go back to my husband. Yeah. I'm not willing to give it away. It's like, nope, this is my baby. I've been growing it. This is like, I'm just very protective. And so I only sold 25%.
Okay.
And they did not like that at all, but they were willing to do it and move forward. So I felt like it was more of a partnership than a sell.
Yeah. Yeah. That does in fact sound almost like growth equity at that point. Like, yes, you're getting, so the 25%, again, does that go in your genes, taking off the table, or is that, I've heard it referred to as being put on the balance sheet, meaning it's like money that is on the balance sheet to grow the business? What happens to that money?
Yeah, that was taking it off the table.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you take it off the table. Now you've got a partner, a minority partner, but you still own the business. And what happens next?
So the idea was, again, to get other garage door companies to come together with us. But we realized that the terrain was changing. It was changing very fast. PE was picking up these companies like they're popcorn. They're popping up, they're taking them. And we're like, what the heck? Not to mention, I thought there was going to be at least 50, maybe 100 companies the same size I was out there. And so I was like, oh yeah, there's plenty. There's none. I was like apparently the size I am, an A+ is a really big size for a garage door company. So there was not a lot of options out there. And so we realized it was changing so fast. Talking to our partner, it's like, we actually started talking about, well, maybe we should just, look at our options. And that's when I talked to Tommy again and was like, okay, he's like, I still want you to join us. And because I still had majority, it's like, well, I still could join him. But again, we looked at it and we talked back and forth, and it's just still not there for my employees. Still wasn't there for them. Even though now all of them have stock, or some of them have stock, now I want more. I keep moving it, and that's consistent with my life. I just keep moving that bar. Now that some of them have stock, I want even more to get stock, and so I like, well, I want them to have like a lot of money. I don't want to just, when we sell or take a second bite of the apple, I don't want them to have 100,000 or 300. I want millionaires here, and a lot of them. And so I just, again, didn't see it going down that route. And that's when I found Guild Garage Group.
Okay. So let me just, when you sold 25%, it sounds like at that stage, you put a value on the business. Well, clearly you put a value on it because you sold, and then you chose to give some of those 15 people in your inner circle some stock as well. Is that right? So you took some money off the table and they got some stock as well. Okay. And is that like common stock, same stock as you, or is it phantom shares, or what is that?
Yeah, we set up phantom shares.
Okay. Great. And so tell me about this guild group. How did this come about? Because you're now talking to Tommy again, and so he wasn't willing to kind of make lots of people shareholders. Is that right?
Well, no, I think he definitely would have been willing to do whatever I could do, or whatever we could do to get it done. But now it's like, again, once he's already sold, because now he's owned by private equity. And so if we sell to him, there's all of that. If I'm selling at $10 and he's already sold it 19 to 20, all that in between they get and we lose out on. And so no matter how you slice and dice it, I couldn't make it work. I'm like, no, I want all of me and my team to get that in between. And I would have got it because he would have paid me out, but everybody else would have missed out because of their share system. And so I was like, I'm not willing to do it. And so, Guild Group, I kind of met up with them. And again, when I was talking to all these other, PEs coming after me, Jordan Dubin was one of the phone calls that I took. And I remember I was just like, I pretty much hung up on him. Not, I want to say respectfully, but he was just a punk ass kid and didn't know that much. And he's like, hey, we're going to start up this PE firm and this is what we're going to do. And I'm like, you have no idea. Like, and he's like, what, but he was very, very kind about it. And he's like, oh yeah. And then he would come back and he would send me texts like, hey, what do you think about this idea? And, what do you think about this space? And just stayed friends with me, even though I was like, dude, I can't join you. And so by then I made the decision to go with the first partner that I went with. And I had other friends in the garage door space. Like, one of my good friends was out of California. His name's Jake Wold. He owns Rightway, or had ownership in Rightway. So he was a really good friend. And the whole plan was for us to come together and build something beautiful. And so right when I signed with this first company, Jake was like on board. Yeah, we're going to do it. And then he's like, and after I signed in, he's like, I can't do it. I got to go with Guild because they're a better offer for me, my team, and my situation. And I was like, oh crap. And that's when I realized everything was changing. And so we kind of switched gears after talking to Jordan. And then, Jordan comes back to me, which he's one of the founders of the Garage Guild Group. So he came back to me and started talking to me again. And this time they've definitely matured over a very short time. I'm surprised how much they matured and how much they've grown into it. But they're doing something super different in this space, which I loved, where the owners can actually keep the equity instead of having to give away that huge spread that I'm talking about, going from 10 to 19. They can get all that in between. And I love that. I love the concept of being able to be able to let the owners, which are the blue collar workers, be able to grow that. So that's why I joined up with Guild.
Okay, so how does that work? So when you say, so they got to roll their phantom equity into real equity, it sounds like, in this structure.
Well, my team still has phantom equity.
Okay.
Of course, phantom equity starts clear back when they're given it. So my team still has phantom equity. But what I'm saying is the way that Guild works is instead of going and saying, okay, you sell your company for 10 or 3, I mean, some of them are only getting 5x. So if you sell it for 5x, and then if the company's valued at 19x, it all of a sudden bumps up to 19, all of a sudden you're 19x. And all the private equity takes everything in between. And so with Guild, what they do different is they say, okay, the companies themselves, like Jake's company, Right Way can keep it. They give some of the shares to Guild, but then they get a hold on to some of it. So then as it grows, they get all of that in between. So they get to see what they've built. They get to see it grow.
So how does Guild make any money?
Well, because they still have ownership with some of the, like a portion of the companies.
Okay. I took a look at the Jordan guy on LinkedIn because I was doing my homework for this episode. He looks like he's 12. I'm like, how is this guy got like the money together to buy a $70 million company?
Hence why I hung up on him for the first time. But he is brilliant. Him, Sean, and Joe, those guys, they're brilliant.
But no disrespect intended to Jordan. Sorry if you're out there, but he does look young and inexperienced in your own admission. What's it been like to have a financial partner who is clearly not from the industry, has no idea? It must be hard.
You know what? You would think it is, but I have been loving it. They are the type of guys that they're like, look, we don't know what we're doing in your space. You know what you're doing. So you keep doing what you're doing. And we just want to support you and give you all the resources that we can. Let's make it better together. They have never once been like, no, you can't do that. You need to call us before you buy toilet paper. They've never done anything like that.
So why not remain independent? Like, were you tempted at all to, after the Tommy Malo second generation negotiations soured, were you tempted to just say, well, I don't need some financial partner. I can just do it on my own?
You know what? I really wasn't, because if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a group. And I want to go far. I want to go far for my guys, for the team, for all my people. And then joining this group, I mean, I know I'm just like, I'm on cloud 9, but I thought I would have seller's remorse. Not at all. Not at all. I did with the first one. First one I had seller's remorse, and I was just like, what did I do? Oh my gosh, I just destroyed my life and everybody else's. But not with this one. It's just been 100%. I'm just so excited. They're super supportive. We just had a big celebration, and the other owners from the other companies, we call them, brand presidents, all the brand presidents, they came in. Not all of them, but a few of them came in to celebrate with us. And it was just such a good time. It just, the synergy between us all and collaboration. I have a question. I'm like, hey, what are you guys doing about this? And, they're just, it's really just this huge support group that it's been fun.
Are you up for a quick lightning round before I let you go with a couple of questions that you can just answer? 1 or 2 word answers is fine, or as long as you want.
I'll give it a go.
Okay. What was the slimiest trick someone tried to play on you in the process of buying your companies?
I would have to be like undervaluing me.
This is Tommy Malo first.
I don't like to say it's him, but it was definitely part of a team.
Yeah. Biggest mistake you made during the process of selling your company, either the first or the second time?
Trusting what somebody else said. And not trusting what somebody else said instead of doing my own due diligence.
Say more. Can you share more detail around what?
So the very first time I sold, it was somebody here local that was working with the guy that they were like, hey, you should do this. He's so amazing. He's this, he's that. And I really just trusted them. I just really was like, oh, you say so, I wish I would have, like, to me, you got to do your own due diligence. Just don't take somebody else's word for it. It's too important.
Right. About the personality traits or more about their background?
About what he's capable of doing. Like,
Got
oh
it.
yeah, he's got this. He could do this. And I was naive.
Yeah. Thinking specifically of selling your business, I've heard it's an emotional roller coaster. What was the high and the low for you emotionally?
Um, the first time was definitely a low. When I got done, I was just like, I hate this. I wish I wouldn't have done it. And even though I still had 75% of it, I just like felt like I just rolled over, like I did something I shouldn't have done. And it was incredibly hard for me. The high was signing with Guild. It's just different. I know it sounds like you're like, it's the same thing. You're still some, but it's like joining this group. And I'd have to go into this big, long backstory, but I found my people. Like, I'm loving it. These guys are all brilliant, like business owners that want the same thing I want. We just want to grow our business the right way and the honorable way. And we want all the blue collars to win.
That's awesome. Awesome. And were there any resources that you could point our listeners to that were helpful in kind of educating yourself about this?
Your show, honestly.
Oh,
I
really?
know. It makes it sound like, oh yeah, but I'm not joking. I've talked to a lot of people and I was like reading some books and then I listened to one of your shows and I can't remember which one, but it was this lady that has sold and she's talking about how it went for her. And then I started listening to another one and listening to your shows. I would say I know it sounds like I'm just doing a plug for you, but I promise your listeners, like I would start listening to your podcasts before you get to the point to sell, because there's so many people that have already experienced it, that have already gone through all the bad and the uglies, and you can just learn from them. I wish I would have done that because I didn't actually hear your podcast till after I sold. And I was like, well, what's this? And I stumbled on through it, like through multiple channels of something. I don't even remember how I got onto your podcast, but I wish I would have listened to a lot of your podcasts and done some research ahead of time before I sold.
No, it's very generous of you to say. Thank you for that generous plug. We'll take it. Was there a trophy you bought yourself? If you listened to the show before, you know I love to hear about trophies. There's got to be like some physical manifestation of this win. What did you buy yourself?
So I'm not very good at spending money, but my husband is really good at it. And he's bought a car, so he bought himself a Tesla, and he's bought a boat, which is amazing, which is my boat too. I love it. It's a dream boat. So
what kind of boat did you get?
It's a Regal. We just traded in our old Regal for a brand new Regal, and it's just a lovely.
I'm not familiar. Is it like a cruiser kind of?
It's like a cabin cuddy, so you can go sleep down there and spend a whole weekend. It's like camping on the lake.
Sounds awesome.
It's a really good time.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm really grateful for you sharing the story and all the twists and turns. If people wanted to reach out on social media, is LinkedIn the best, or are you an Instagram user, or what's the best way for people to say hi if they want to do that on social?
Yeah, I'm not very good at social media, but LinkedIn, I'll get to you in about, 3 weeks to a month. Facebook is usually only a week to 2 weeks. And if you text me, I'm usually Johnny on it.
All right. Well, we'll put all the contact information you're comfortable sharing and the show notes at builttosell.com. Carrie, thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.